Hey guys, this is Mario again, coming at you another review. As you guys know, this is my review of the 2011 sequel to the 3 films I reviewed last time, Scream 4. Now, this movie was made on a $40 million budget, and so far it's grossed $100 million, so it's made money back, almost 3 times its budget. But anyway, before I get into the heart of the review, I got a quick little thing to do, because since I did my Black Friday haul, I actually bought 3 games today when me and Jeff went to GameStop. There were 3 used games, and they were still doing that 2 buy 2 get 1 free, and I still had store credit, so I decided to get a couple games. I still have a little bit of store credit left, by the way. So I got more of the games, and I ended up putting them in here, because all those games I bought that are caseless, this is where they all are. And just in case you're wondering, yes, there are DVDs in here. The reason I did that is because of how I restocked my DVDs. It's even more crowded than it was before. I decided to put the DVD cases that are going to be in the back row, put their movies in cases like this. Because I don't usually take the DVDs out that often, so, well, I do watch movies, just not, I don't like constantly pull the discs out, so, okay. Now anyway, the 3 games I got are Rumble Roses, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, and then of course this is the game that I knew that when I saw it I had to get it, which is why I looked constantly through the rest of the games to try to get it up so I could at least get 1 game free, and ironically this is the game I ended up getting for free. It's a game I never see that often at GameStop, but I knew I had to get it because I heard it's a good one. I wish they had the other movie related game though. That of course is The Thing. I look really forward to playing that game. Now, anyway, down to the heart and soul of this review. Scream 4. The movie is once again directed by Wes Craven, which I don't see how they could have done the Scream series without him, because it's one of the few series where a director directs every entry in the series, at least within horror. Because if you think about it, John Carpenter only directed the first Halloween movie, and while he was involved in the next 2, he never directed any more of them. Steve Miner directed the 3rd and 4th Jason movies, but that's it. So it's unless they make another one, someone else directs it, he'll have that record. He had it until this movie was announced to be in development, but it was originally announced back in July of '08, and Wes actually said that he would not direct it unless it had a script as good as Scream. Now, why the script on paper probably was about as good as Scream and Scream 2, maybe. The execution, maybe not as much. I will say this. I like the movie, and I will say that it is a step up from Scream 3, because as you notice, like I said, I like Scream 3, but the major problem with that movie is it seems more like the movies that the Scream films are spoofing more than a Scream movie itself. This one, not that problem so much. The problem with this film, of course, is that the same humor that worked in Scream and Scream 2, well, it works here, but not as well. It just feels old, feels like it's run its course, and it feels, I'm trying to think of the proper word, not forced, because if it was forced the humor won't work at all. I don't know if dated would be the right word, because that would imply something that was made, but I don't know if dated, but just feels out of place, I guess. But the humor I'll get to later. So we got Wes directing, and of course there were a couple ideas for screenplays. Like I noticed, like in one of the early screenplays, Sidney was supposed to be attacked in the opening scene, survives, and then 2 years later the main plot would have taken place. I could have seen that. It's a good thing they didn't. Another one originally had Gale and Dewey having a baby, but I would have liked to have seen that. But what is what it is. And apparently there was also a lawsuit regarding the production of this movie, because apparently there was this one, Kathy Conrad, back in May of last year, who she filed a lawsuit against the Weinstein Company saying that her company, Cat Entertainment, was supposed to produce all the films, and it was a minor court case. It was only this year, when the movie was about to be released, that it was settled out of court, and apparently it's not been confirmed, but apparently she's getting some money from the film, which I guess that's popped the budget up a little bit. Now the cast, of course, all the principal players who are still alive return. Of course, we got David Arquette and Courteney Cox playing Gale and Dewey. We got Neve Campbell returning as Sidney. And once again, Roger L. Jackson voices Ghostface, which I will say that's probably one thing that I do notice about the movie is his voice. While it's not like how it was, he still has it, but you could tell that his voice is older. I'll say, I don't know if it's me, but I have to listen to it back to back, but I think he might be a little bit scarier now because his voice is slightly raspier. Other than that, the only other actors on here, the only actor in the cast that I recognize other than them is Emma Roberts, who I know she's related to Julia Roberts. I'm gonna see if it's the sibling. I want to make sure it's the right sibling. Yes, it's Eric Roberts' daughter. That's right, Mr. I Don't Hit a Woman in the Expendables, Roberts himself. Which I'm not gonna spoil anything, of course, about the ending of the movie, except maybe talking about it loosely, but he might break that rule. That's the thing. And the only other person in here that I probably wouldn't know anything about is Rory Culkin, who is the younger brother of Macaulay Culkin, which I have to say he's not. I have to say just by this movie he's not as good as an actor as his brother, but he has potential. I mean, a couple more years of acting, he might get good. He's only a little bit younger than I am, so can't really flack the guy. And once again, the script is written by Kevin Williamson, which you can really tell right off the bat when you watch this movie that it was written by him. But like I said, just not as good as the previous two movies. Now, the movie takes place 15 years after the original film. These two high school students are killed by a new Ghostface, and how the movie starts, it makes it look like it's going to be a movie, but then it's the movie within the movie, and then another movie within the movie. And that's part of the humor, I guess, because you think of it, the first one was basically dialogue, making fun of horror movies, and then an actual killer. The second one was people going to see a premiere of a movie based on the events of the first movie, and then, of course, talking trash on the traditional scary movie things like, yeah, what is that added to the story? What's the status there? Her being badass naked. And this one making fun of movies within the movies and stuff. And I like some of the dialogue making fun of the torture porn movie. I got a little chuckle out of that. Then, of course, the murders that come out of nowhere. Murderers you don't expect. And, of course, after Ghostface kills him, Sidney has returned to Woodsboro to promote her new book, which is basically about her conquering her demons. And another thing I'd like to know before I get too far is that this movie, the only film it really acknowledges is the first one. I mean, you could tell it probably acknowledges the second one. The third one never really mentions at all. They don't even mention Cotton Wary being killed. They don't mention anything. So if you think about it, you could actually see this film basically as a sequel to the first one, maybe acknowledging the second one, but it could be just a sequel redo. And you could really tell that it feels that way, because just how the film is done, you could actually just skip 3, and you could just watch the first two, skip 3, and then watch this one, and you will not miss a thing. Because with how 2 ends, you can actually segue from that into this movie, like, because, you know, 2 ended with Dewey in the going to the hospital, and Gale going with him, so in this movie they're married, so you can actually see that as, you know, them spending more time together and then getting married. Then, of course, after whatever the first 2 movies, you know Sidney's going to have a lot of issues. But it's just, I guess it depends on the viewer in that case. But me, I look at it as a sequel to all 3 films, but it's just made in a way that's kind of vague. Now, back to my normal part of the review. Sorry, I went off a little bit. I'm trying to remember what the title of her book is, because I watched it right before I left for Black Friday. I think it's like Out of Darkness or something, but I could see her doing this, you know, writing a self-help book to destroy her demons. Now, as I mentioned before, Dewey and Gale are married. They seem to be having like a semi-happy marriage, but it seems to be going through a rough patch because Dewey's now the sheriff, and it seems that one of his deputies is trying to get into his pants. Luckily, this is one thing I will say, he does not do it, so he does not pull a Ron White. I know that's a cheap joke, but I like Ron White, but, you know, that was kind of a dick move to cheat on your wife. I mean, hey, she didn't have sex with you for 3 months, but still, she's your wife. But her rough patch is that she cannot write anything. She's trying to write fiction, and then, of course, when we see her, I need to think of what to fucking write. I mean, I got a little chuckle out of that. And they actually do an in-joke reference to the fact that David Arquette and Courteney Cox are married in real life. Yes, technically speaking, they are still married, even though they are separated right now. Because remember, it's a trial separation, but legally they are still married. At least last time I checked, they are. And I just checked the other day, so unless they get divorced quickly. But anyway, back to the plot. The teenage characters, they're okay. I mean, written-wise, they are good, but it's probably just the actors, because Emma Roberts and Rory Culkin are the only ones I really liked, and one of them seems like a low-rent Michael Cera. Yeah, $40 million, they couldn't get Michael Cera, so they got a knockoff. And it was kind of funny, and the teenagers, they do act like how teenagers act nowadays. Sad to say, yeah. But they could have gotten better actors, but I'm guessing with $40 million, they couldn't get that many good actors. They had to get the low-rent CW actors. Not all of them have that CW look, but you could tell probably by their acting that that's probably what they did. But they work. And the thing is that the main thing this movie does is it makes fun of how the horror genre has been through the last decade since Scream. Because you know how the genre's gone. It's had all the torture films and stuff like Saw and Hostel. They've had the whole, and then of course the slasher genre remakes like the Friday the 13th reboot, the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, the Halloween films done by Rob Zombie, the My Bloody Valentine remake in 3D, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and its prequel. Remember, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. April Fool's Day, The Fog, and many others. So that's basically what the main thing of this film is it's making fun of remakes, and that's part of why I say it feels more like this is Scream 3 instead of Scream 3, because Scream 1 was parodying the slasher genre in and of itself in a serious way. The second film continued that, but also made fun of sequels. I mean, that whole scene where they're talking trash on sequels. This one is making fun of remakes, and of course that continues all the way to the end. And of course they also make fun of some more cops, some more things like with cops, because Anthony Anderson is in this movie, which I'm going to point out the funny and ironic thing I find about that. Anthony Anderson plays a cop in this movie, Scream 4. And he was in a movie earlier that was a sequel to a movie that parodied the first Scream, Scary Movie 3. Which the ironic thing about that is that one of his co-stars in the next movie, Scary Movie 4, also was in that, but even more directly. Bill Pullman. Remember, he was in The Grudge in the opening scene. The guy that committed suicide, if I remember correctly. Then, of course, he was in Scary Movie 3 4, in the segment that parodied The Village. So, a little bit more direct, but I still find that ironic. And, of course, he's a likable cop for what he has to do, Anthony Anderson. I mean, he's played a cop before on Law & Order. He was in Law & Order SVU and a guest star in a couple episodes, and his character got transferred to the normal department for Law & Order before it got canceled. So I could buy him as a cop. And I like one of his conversations with the other cops when they're talking about movie cops. Like, unless you play by... cops always get into movies, unless they're played by Bruce Willis. And, of course... they even make fun of that later when one cop gets killed. He's like... I'm not going to spoil who it is, though, but it's just funny. He's like, fuck you, Bruce Willis. I'll admit that guy... I got a chuckle out of that. That was an ad-lib, that was a good ad-lib. Especially just the killer just standing in the background walking, because he stabbed the guy in the head and the guy got up and started walking away. And he's like, then again, you don't feel pain in the brain, so theoretically, if you get stabbed in a certain part of the brain, that might be possible, so I'm not going to call bullshit on that, but it's funny. And, like I said, the remake thing is constant throughout the movie. Even bringing in stuff like webcams and stuff like the killer starting to film his own murders. I thought that was interesting. And of course, like before, there's more than one killer. Who they are, I'm not going to spoil, but I will talk about what the killer's motivation. It goes with the remake theme, is that they want to recreate the driving force in the events of the original film, but change it about a bit. They actually want to make sure Sidney is dead, and they want to make themselves the victims. I'm not going to say who it is in the movie, because that would be a big spoiler. Let's just say, on paper it's good. I can kind of... When I first heard about what it was, I'm like, really, that's going to be the twist. But watching it, I'll say it's at least a little bit believable. I will say, though, that the reason in Scream 3, the reason that the killer did it, I found a little bit more believable because of the jealousy thing, and which part of that ties in with this movie. If you're watching the movie in a little bit, you'll see what I mean. That will probably give away who the killer is ahead of time. But I don't call bullshit on it, but let's just say with that, this is a sequel you're either gonna like it or you're gonna hate it. Which I know my friend Effrey does not like the movie. I don't remember if Wild Man Beyond likes it or hates it, because it's been a long time since I talked to him about it. If I remember correctly, when I first talked to him about it, I think he liked it. I don't remember if Matt likes it or hates it, because I think he's like in the middle on it, but I don't remember correctly. I haven't seen what Michael King's thoughts are on the movie, and I haven't seen what Mike's OCP's thoughts are on the movie. I'd like to hear their thoughts on it if they have. But for me, for what it is, I like it. And of course, the ending does have a little bit of a ha-ha humor to it, but it does kind of end a little, slightly abruptly, but ends in a hospital, so can't ask for any more than that. I've gone through a lot through the last 2 days, so I'm trying to remember any other thing about the movie I wanted to talk about. And of course, this is the one movie, like the previous movie, Dewey does not get stabbed. He gets hit in the head with a bedpan, but he doesn't get stabbed. Gale gets stabbed this time. I know that's a little spoiler, but I'm not saying the context of it. Could be during a struggle for all you know. I know, but you don't, unless you've seen the movie. And the actress that plays the deputy I thought was pretty good, and you could really tell that she wants Dewey. She wants you, David. She wants you. And I actually say the character of Dewey, I do like him as a sheriff, and I have to say he deserves to be the sheriff in this movie. As a new sheriff in town, his name is Dewey Riley. And the character of Sidney, what she goes through, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned it already, but if I haven't, then I'll talk about it now. I do believe her exercising her demons and stuff. For me, believable character development. And then, of course, one thing that kind of comes out of left field a little bit is the fact that she has an aunt and a cousin, which they never mention that at all. I mean, it's like, why was her aunt during the first movie? And again, I think it depends on the viewer. Me, personally, I think that either the probably aunt did not live in Woodsboro or something, because it's an aunt on the mother's side of the family. They make that clear. I already thought that's what it was. And that they never state, though, what happened, but I think that the aunt probably lived outside of Woodsboro or something, and then just moved back, because there's not a husband in the picture, so I'm thinking that she's either divorced and decided to move back home, or the husband's dead and she just decided to move back home. One or the other. I think, like I said, it's up to the viewer. The one thing I want to know is, where's her dad in all this? Because we see her dad in the first movie, he's absent from the second movie, and he's in one scene of the third movie. Where's her dad? Did he die? I want to know, because I know that Wes Craven, there's at least one deleted scene where Wes Craven has a cameo, because I think he has a cameo in all four films, because I know in the first film he plays the janitor with the Freddy sweater and the little joke, sons of bitches, what'd you call me? Not you, Fred. Then of course in the second film he's almost said background. Yeah, doctor in the background. I could have said it that way too. I don't know if he has a cameo in the third one, because I know Jan and Bob have a cameo in the third one, which I didn't mention that, but that was a funny cameo. I guess that's why Wes Craven had a cameo in Jan and Bob Strikes Back, to pay him back for this. We love this monkey! See? Funny that they made... there's a joke about Scream 4 years before there is a Scream 4. You guys aren't trying anymore. Some people might say that about Wes Craven, but for this movie, I think it's probably a little step up. I have a feeling, though, with the movie made before this, I probably will hate, so that's why I say this probably is. When I see that movie, I'll let you guys know if this movie, for me, is a step up from that movie. Overall, for me, it's an enjoyable movie. Does it touch the first two Scream movies? Not with a 10-foot pole. Is it way better than the third one, though? It's a good time waster. Like I said, some of the twists in it you might not be for everyone. The humor, making fun of the remakes, worked with me. I didn't laugh out loud like I did with the first two movies, but I did laugh. Especially like that thing, like, fuck you, Bruce Willis, stuff like that. And the cast is likable. I forgot to mention Anthony Anderson too, but he was funny. Rory Culkin, like I mentioned, he has potential. Emma Roberts, I've never seen her in a role before, even though I know she's done work. I thought she was pretty good. Neve Campbell, Courteney Cox, and David Arquette, they did a great job as always. Thought they did a little bit better acting-wise in the previous film. Wes Craven, still pretty good direction. Hopefully he can do another horror film outside of sequels and rip-offs and other stuff. I'd like to see him do something original, maybe like I'd like to see him do a film that's an ode to the 80s. That would be cool. May, you know, make the film like he in the same at least production style vein like he did with A Nightmare on Elm Street, and maybe some of the other 80s films he did. That would be cool. I mentioned this before, but with
the same impact as Scream, but we do not need another Scream sequel. I know that before this film even came out, they wanted to make another sequel or two, to make another one. Now, if they do make two more sequels, I hope they don't do back-to-back one, because that never usually works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, Back to the Futures 2 and 3, I like them. Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3, I like them, but at least with Pirates of the Caribbean, the story is kind of stretched a little thin when you compare it to 1 and 4. But they better not do it. But if they didn't make another Scream film, it wouldn't bother me. If they do make another one, hopefully they concentrate a little bit more on the story. But now, if you think about it, what else can they parody? They've already parodied horror films, horror sequels, horror remakes. What are they going to parody next? Just the thought, because there's nothing left to really parody, so if they didn't make another one, I wouldn't. Copycats, I think, is the only thing they could parody. You could do that in a You can do that in a little short film. So probably best if they didn't make another one. What we need is a film with the same impact as the first Scream movie. That's what we need now. Anyway, my rating for Scream 4, 3.5 out of 5 stars. See, half a point more than the previous film. It's an enjoyable time waster. If you like the first two films, I say give it a watch, but doesn't touch them, obviously, like I said before. But time waster that you either like it or hate it. And I didn't really notice that much CGI. I know there was like minimal use, like for certain scenes, but I guess the CGI usage is comparable to what they did in the way less than that. The Friday the 13th reboot, like that, you know, just to enhance the kills, which is how CGI in this type of film should be used. Anyway, that concludes my review. Take care.